Really excited to introduce some awesome millennial musicians today for our millennial musician panel. We have Chase Miller, Laura Campbell, and Vince Dominguez, and I'm going to let all of you introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about who you are, what you do, where you're from, anything like that. And then we'll go around and answer any questions. If you're watching, please feel free to leave your questions for all of the panelists.
Who wants to go first? Not it.
I'll go first. My name is Vince Dominguez. I am currently living in Providence, Rhode Island. I moved here back in September. I was previously living in Arizona, and I completed my doctorate at Arizona State in May. My project focused around commissioning new music for clarinet by Mexican composers, something that I am really proud of. It was a pretty cool contribution. I'm hoping to get those works a little more present in the meantime. But as a working professional here in Rhode Island, I'm still kind of finding my stride out here. Obviously, we're still in the pandemic, so it's been kind of tricky to network and get gigs and stuff. But outside of my music career, I'm also a marketing consultant. I do graphic design, photo, creative consulting. I help people kind of actualize and reimagine what they can do as a professional. I work with a lot of musicians and creative people, so it's always kind of helping me to kind of reassess what I can do differently as well. So I think creativity is ever evolving, and it's really fun to kind of help other people out with their process. So that's basically what I do. Been playing the clarinet for 21 years besides that, still, and I'm really happy to be here. So thank you, Jenny.
I guess I'll go next. I'm Laura. I'm from Melbourne, Australia. I suppose I could call myself a social media influencer. I'm Laura Clarinetist on Instagram, where I just post like lots of multi-track videos of me playing clarinet, bass clarinet, flute, saxophone. I'm also the founder and CEO of Virtual Concert Band, which is an online ensemble where I bring together hundreds of musicians to play concert band music. And I'm like the organizer, the video editor, the audio editor, and we do workshops with the composers of the pieces. And I'm also a woodwind teacher.
My name is Chase Miller. I'm currently in Lexington, Kentucky. I am the program director for an after-school El Sistema program, which, as far as I know, is the only one in Kentucky. It's named Music Works, which is through Central Kentucky Youth Orchestra. I'm also newly appointed this month, actually, the adjunct clarinet instructor at Transylvania University. And then on top of that, I run a clarinet studio, and yeah, and I read tons of books.
Thank you all. So I'm going to start out with a very broad question and a very broad topic. What advice do you have for millennial musicians? I know that's always an important question, but especially this last year, I feel like so many musicians that are pursuing careers in music, they're trying to expand their skill set. They're trying to just be the best they can during all of these difficult times. So advice for other millennial musicians.
Don't limit yourself. That's what I would say. I think that we're living in a time where it's good to be able to do more than just play your instrument. And the more you can do, the more self-sustainable and adaptable you can be. Everything I know that I currently do outside of teaching lessons and performing, I learned by myself outside of school. And it's kind of been my, I've really tried to challenge myself to learn something new each day if I can. I just feel like there's always something popping up, and the more you can do yourself, the stronger you can be as a musician to help others and teach others. And that's also something I kind of incorporate in my private lessons. I also try to push that on my students. So I think it's good to be very adaptable and to not limit yourself. So that's the one thing I would probably say.
I would say to figure out what it is that you really, really, really love doing every single day. So like if you enjoy playing the clarinet, that's totally fine. But I think there's like a big expectation, especially at least over here in Melbourne, that if you're a successful musician, then you're striving to be the principal clarinetist in an orchestra. Whereas for me, I was like, well, I actually don't really enjoy orchestra rehearsals, but I really love doing video editing and audio editing and filming myself. So figure out what it is exactly that you love and kind of give yourself your own definition of what success is rather than listening to what everyone around you is expecting of you.
There's two big things that come to mind. The first one is accessibility and visibility, right? People need to know who you are, right? You can't just stick in a practice room and no one know who you are and be like, oh, well, I can play all this stuff. Like, I should be getting these gigs. I should be doing this stuff. Like, you have to be visible. And you have to be accessible. People need to be able to get a hold of you. People like make a website, get some business cards, do something to where people can have access to you. And then the second thing is if you are in school, my biggest advice, which I wish someone would have told me this more when I was in school, is get outside of the academic bubble. Most of the time your school's in a community. Get outside of that. Like go into the community, go do something that isn't on, well, I don't know if you can do that now during a pandemic, but ideally figure out what's happening in your community that's outside of the university or community college or wherever you're at.
Really great advice. I know that sort of touches on a subject. Chase and I did a book club last year online, and so we have a lot to say about like music and arts in the community. That's probably a different discussion, but maybe we could leave the name of the book that we were reading for that. And actually, this is a good time to branch out to the next question. So when you were in university, what do you wish you knew as a music student that you know now, but maybe you didn't learn in school?
Oh, wow. Taxes? um, that's for sure one for me. I wish there was a class, or yeah, just maybe a class or maybe a seminar on just, yes, being a freelance musician has all of these flexibility that you can have, but how do you just financially support yourself and keep everything in balance, checks and balances. When I was at university, there was not a class on just how to do taxes for freelance musicians, right? That's one thing. The other thing for me is for music ed, I wish that the topic of El Sistema was taught more in schools, which is very different than public school teaching. I didn't know even what El Sistema was until I was like 29. Had no idea that it even existed. So I wish that was taught or even discussed more in music ed classes in school. Those are my two things.
I kind of agree with Chase just on the whole music business side. I wish we were definitely taught about taxes because I just kind of had to figure that out on my own, like what am I doing? And definitely just I wish that university kind of pushed me even earlier to say, hey, like set up like all of your social media, set up a website, like everyone needs to know who you are. Yeah, and just kind of I just wish the expectation was gone that it's like all about your ability to play the clarinet and that it's more about like knowing how to network with other people in the community, how to get gigs, how to actually talk to different musicians in the community, how to build a presence, just making a business. Yeah.
I'll say the same thing. Yeah, I think for many years I limited myself to just thinking that I was a clarinet player, and it becomes hard because you kind of identify with your instrument to a point where it becomes painful if things aren't working out the way you want them to. So when you do other things, you have a release and you can still be creative and still feel fulfilled by playing your clarinet. And I would say that. And then I guess social media has evolved so much, and digital media, so it's kind of hard to wish that someone had told me, because these things have kind of evolved as over the past 5 years or so. But I wish I'd had more of a technological grasp on music, recording, just technology in general, and also business. You know, it's one thing to play your instrument, but you also have to be able to manage yourself and your time and your resources in a way that will let you get to the next step. And it can be challenging at times. So that's probably what I would say. So
for all of these skills, I know that we've all sort of become self-taught along the way, but do any of you have any like favorite books that you've learned from, or people, or YouTube channels, podcasts, anything like that? I know I'm a big fan of Gary Vee, the social media guru. So I learned a lot from Gary Vee, but what about all of you?
I've just kind of picked things up along the way. I've worked in many different jobs, so I think I learned while I was in the chair sometimes, trying to figure out how to do things. I've worked in marketing management, personal relations, project management. So I think that those jobs really informed my ability to have different skill sets. And then I kind of picked things up from podcasts. I really love the Social Media Examiner podcast. That's I'm always learning different things in that are really fleshed out, and there's really great resources that come with it. And it's weekly, so there's always a different topic that's popping up. So I would definitely recommend that if you have an hour to spend a week on something else besides TV or whatever else you like to spend your time on to listen to.
I'm going to interrupt really quickly. I like what you said, Vince, about like you had to learn on the job a lot of times. We had a panel with Michael Lowenstern earlier today, and that was one of his pieces of advice was say yes now and learn how later.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's very true.
For sure. I think we've all been there.
Yeah, going along with that, I worked in arts administration that was actually my second job out of my master's. And I never had a class on arts administration, didn't know what I was getting into, and talk about learning on the job. Yeah, there's so much terminology that I didn't even know. And just, I think my organizational skills definitely developed on that job, um, which has transferred in all of my jobs now. But as far as reading, Jenny actually put in the chat earlier the book that, for my line of work with El Sistema and doing a lot of work, like I guess you could say in community development here in Lexington, I always keep it on my desk, so I'm going to show it. And Jenny knows I love this book so much, is Building Communities, Not Audiences. If you can get your hands on that book, I think it will raise more questions than answers, but the right kind of questions for just like, how do we reshape the value of music in the community? But I'm just going to leave it at that.
I'm kind of with Jenny on the whole Gary Vee thing. I was going to say Gary Vee. Just like Gary Vee's podcast, and he has a couple of books. I think Crushing It is my favorite book, just kind of talking about just working as hard as you can and not worrying about what other people think. Like, for example, say if you're posting on Instagram and then like your followers are going down, instead of just looking at that, just keep doing you, keep doing what you love. And then eventually that will all come. He's just really good at just saying, yep, just do it, whatever ideas you have, just get started. You'll figure it out later. Just, yeah, crush it.
So on to another subject I'm sure many of us have experienced. Can we talk about imposter syndrome for a little bit? I know this is something that's very prevalent. So if anyone wants to share maybe their ideas, advice, personal experiences, if you feel comfortable with that, if you have gone through that.
Yeah, I would love to go first on this one. My biggest inner issue with imposter syndrome, which I still have in my current job, in my after school El Sistema job, it's an all string program. And it's been that way for 8 years now. And I'm not a string player, but yet I'm the director of this program. So every day I have imposter syndrome of like, I don't like some of these kids that have been in this program for 6 years can outplay me. But I have to always tell myself, like, I am a competent musician and I have things to offer these kids that may not be this is the best way to shift or this is the best exercise to strengthen your pinky or something. And to compensate for that, my coworkers, one of which who grew up in El Sistema and the other one who's a DMA in cello, they sort of pick up where I lack in teaching technical things. But they have reassured me. They're like, you are totally competent in this position. You can do it. There's things that you can offer. That's just my biggest advice with imposter syndrome. You always have something to bring to the table. And don't forget that.
Suppose I'll go. I have imposter syndrome literally like all day, every day. It's like one of my biggest issues when I'm teaching. It got to a point last year with online teaching that I literally was on the phone to my boss in tears because I was like, I'm not qualified enough to teach this amazing saxophone player. Like, I'm a clarinet specialist. I have no clue about any of this repertoire. I don't know what I'm doing. I feel that way running my business. When I'm opening emails, I get so anxious just to open an email in case someone is like, oh my gosh, you suck. Like, what are you doing? Or you're too young to be running a business. I feel it every single day. And what I've kind of been learning just over the last few weeks, even, is just to every single day give myself that time to remind myself that I do know what I'm doing. So in the mornings, I wake up, I do a little bit of practice, whether that's on clarinet or flute, just something that I enjoy. So it doesn't even have to be like playing the Mozart concerto or playing scales or whatever, just doing something that I love and creating and spending some time just with myself, just like drinking a coffee, going for a walk, whatever I want to do. I just give myself that time in the morning to remind myself that I know what I'm doing, I love my job, and that I am worthy of doing what I do every single day. So then when I do get to actually like doing my emails, sitting down, doing work, going on social media, then I go, no, actually, like, I'm here for a reason. I know what I'm doing and I'm enough. So it's just giving myself that little reminder every single day.
So, I guess I'll dovetail on what both Laura and Chase said. I think it's important to remember that you are unique and no one else is like you. And although we all play clarinet, we all have different things to offer. And that's definitely what I try to promote in my own teaching, and just trying to empower people to think outside the box and not, again, limit yourself to just thinking that because you play the clarinet, that's what you have to do all the time. And it can be daunting at times to feel like you're not living up to your own expectations, and it can be very self-defeating. And I've totally been there many times. Who isn't? I mean, it's just part of being human. It's part of life. I don't believe anybody who says they haven't been there in some capacity. But take time for yourself. Remember your worth and remember what you can do well. And just, I guess, at least I try to remind myself that growth is not linear. Everyone has a different path, and no two paths are the same. And there's opportunity out there for you that's uniquely yours if you know how to find it. And I think that's the exciting part of that as well.
All just such great advice, especially I know that we're all very active on social media. I love social media, but also it's so hard when you're constantly comparing yourself to everyone else's highlight reels. You don't see the actual real life, but it's all very good advice, important reminders. Let's see, another question I wanted to ask related to imposter syndrome is just self-care in general, but especially the last year with managing like an online presence and practicing in your jobs and work and everything. So self-care tips for musicians.
exercise, which I'm bad at. I cannot say that that is something I do regularly, but I have a lot of issues with keeping up with like my mental health. I can really get down on myself and just get in a really negative space if I don't really take care of my body, what I'm putting in my body. It also makes practicing not fun if I don't feel good or if I'm really stressed because I'm not eating well. I mean, that's part of the reason why I got a dog to keep me exercising. But yeah, I would. My teacher in my master's degree actually helped me so much with mental health, and I'd never really taken the time to set up a routine for just being aware of what I'm thinking, how self-talk, um, and just how the foods that I'm putting in my body affect my mental health. So that's my 2 cents on that.
I agree with that. I've always struggled, like especially in the last year, like just getting myself to the gym though and exercising. Recently, I've just kind of found the thing that I like, which is dancing, which is something that I've loved doing since I was little, and I've just rediscovered it. So that's kind of my new motivation to make sure that I'm exercising all the time. Something that I've started doing in the last few months, I've actually started seeing a therapist, which can kind of be like a little bit of a taboo topic, but I think it should be a little bit more normal. So just knowing that if you need help with your mental health, then it's totally normal to ask for help and get it if you need it. People of all different ages and all different stages of life get a therapist. You don't actually have to have anything wrong with you at all. It's actually just really cool to chat through your week with someone and kind of get an outside perspective on everything. So just asking for help if you need it.
For me, it's been hard working from home all the time. I mean, we're all home more or less, so it's some weeks are harder than others to kind of find the balance. But if I can make it to the gym at least 3 times a week, that's awesome. I love to run, love the Stairmaster. I can also read when I'm on Stairmaster, so love to multitask when I can. Eating well, something I really try to do as much as I can, drinking more water. I was actually sick all last week because I got dehydrated, which is also happens in the winter, if because you're home and you're not really thinking to drink water and take care of yourself. So that was not fun, and a healthy reminder that I need to take better care of myself, even at home when I'm not as active. But mental health is also super important to me. Just trying to find ways to decompress and laugh a little bit more. I think laughter for me is really important. Finding the levity in each day, whether it be a show I'm watching or just playing with my cats. They're a nice reminder that life should not be taken too seriously. I know a lot's going on, but trying to strike that balance while still getting the things you need to done. It's tough, but it's a work in progress. I'm not sure if I'll ever find that perfect balance, but yeah, I've definitely gotten better over the past few years, I think.
Can I add like one little thing to that?
Absolutely.
I did this with my best friend, and it's so super simple, and I highly suggest any of us or anyone watching this to do it. We would do a little hashtag text message that's like joy of the day, and then just have like one sentence or whatever. And it's so simple, and it could be the smallest thing. I mean, this summer during the pandemic, when like it's summer outside and you can't go anywhere, or you have to stay away from people, I rode my bike without having my hands on the bike for the first time. And I'm 30. And I texted my friend, I was like, hey, this was my joy of the day. And I was like so happy after that. I mean, it can be something really simple. If you have an accountability buddy or something, and it keeps you in contact with something consistently, and it forces you to just like check in with something that's making you happy in that day. And that's my advice.
I did something similar to that March of last year. My brother was doing it, and I jumped on board. I still have a journal. I'm not doing as much just because I felt like I didn't need it as much because it helped me so much. But we were keeping journals of 3 good things that happened no matter what each day. And, it was not the best time, and, it's still not the best time to be a musician, but it really helped me to, really think about what was going on my day and what was I actually acknowledging and being present for, and maybe taking for granted or not taking for granted. So I really recommend that. It's really simple, and it literally takes like 30 seconds, maybe more, but it's so cool to see all these little moments from my past year that I never would have probably recognized otherwise. So that's also something that I love to do.
I love that. Just small gratitudes, joy of the day. If anyone wants to share their joy of the day moments, feel free in the chat. I see Jessica says, my dog's running in the snow today, my yoga practice this morning. I'm thinking about mine. I have a lot of small joys. This cup of tea I'm drinking is really good.
Perfect.
Nothing too small. Perfect. Let's see. Jessica actually had another question. I love this one. Can you all talk about an experience that you've had that really shaped your view on what you wanted to do in music? Specifically, like when you had an aha moment, like this is it, this is exactly what I want to do.
I think I'm kind of in that mode right now. I feel like in a lot of ways I'm kind of in the renaissance of my career, where I'm really trying to rethink what music means to me. And with all this time at home, it's been a really nice chance to branch out a little bit more. So I'm not really sure if I ever would have done all these things at home and explored all these different mediums without the time. So it's been a cursing and a blessing. So I'm not sure if there was really a junction where I realized that, but I think the time at home has really been able to, it's been good because I felt a little more inspired to just invest more time in things that I normally wouldn't have had time for outside of work, since I'm not traveling as much and going to work and commuting and stuff. It definitely opens up your day for more possibility.
I'm not sure if I've actually had that aha moment yet. I feel like when I was younger, I definitely had that moment where I said, yes, like the clarinet is 100% what I want to do. I'm not exactly sure what it's going to be, but I know that it's going to be music. But I do think that the pandemic has definitely helped kind of realizing what direction I want to go into. I just remember being at school or like teaching online and going, I'm actually not really interested in teaching at the moment, and it's not making me like want to wake up in the morning. But when I think about doing audio and video editing, I'm just like, yes, let's wake up at 6 a.m, let's get editing, let's do it. And I was just like, wow, like if this is what I actually want to be doing all day, and I'm looking forward to finishing my teaching day so I can go and do that, maybe that's the direction I should be heading in. But I don't think I've had like a really good like aha moment of like, yes, this is 100% what I want to do for the rest of my life just yet.
For me, it was last year at the 2020 El Sistema conference, which was like right before the pandemic hit the US. That was the first moment when I was like, these are my people. Like I'm surrounded by like-minded people that are like, we all have a mission to use music for like social change. That was, I knew after that conference, I was like, this is the path I want to go in. Like El Sistema, that's where I want to go. I want to like dive deep into that type of teaching, which, like I said earlier, I wish was brought up in university education more, so much more. The intensity of it, like recruiting in it, just the methodology of it, the network. Yeah, that was my aha moment. Is just El Sistema. Yeah, it's love it, love it. If you have not heard of it, I suggest you look it up. YouTube it. It's that's
And before I forget, I see Jessica with the fast fingers. Anytime a link is whispered, she has it in the chat. She's very fast with that. So if any of you want to share your websites, your social media accounts, anything like that, I forgot to mention that earlier, but anything of your resources, like Laura's virtual concert band, like anything at all really that you want to share, please feel free. The next question, what do you find are unique challenges that millennial musicians face, maybe that other generations haven't had to face before?
Looks like Jessica said the gig economy. I can definitely agree with that. I think though everything is a little overcrowded than it used to be, at least with gigging, the gig economy in general, not just music, but just getting freelance work. It's tough. There's a lot of people online now, and it's hard to get noticed. It's hard to stand out. You constantly have to work on it. It's a never-ending process, but kind of. I mean, work is work, but work is changing. You know, everything is becoming digitized, and you kind of have to be fluent in digital media to some degree to be able to ride the wave. You know, so I think that's probably the most challenging aspect for me still. I mean, for everybody, even I would say probably other generations as well, not just millennials.
That's a difficult question. I don't know if I have one like specifically for millennials. But I will say something that is thankfully at the forefront of just like the music industry in general is and this may be like a hot topic, but just like changing the color of the stage too. Like the push for diversity in music is so big right now, and I wish it would have been more prevalent whenever we were younger. But I think it's even more at the forefront now. Like it needs to be in every conversation when it comes to big decisions in the music industry, but or at least the classical music industry for sure. Um, but I do see a lot of millennials talking about it, posting about it, bringing it up more than I see an older generation, and that may be because they aren't on social media. But when the conversation comes into bringing diversity into the orchestra or on the stage, you're probably not marketing that to 50 or 60 plus. You're marketing it to the upcoming young musicians that are on social media. So that I don't know if that makes sense, but um, yeah, I think that's an everyone issue. But it seems like millennials and younger are talking about it more.
It's important. It's crucial.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I don't think I have one piece of advice specifically for millennials. That's really hard. That's
Right?
such a tricky question because I feel like all of these issues that are kind of relevant to every single generation. Like obviously the world is changing a lot right now, and we all just kind of have to figure out how to adapt. Like before, how we were saying, like in college and university, like we wish that people would have taught us like how to market ourselves on social media and how to have a website, but also everything is still new and there's more new things that are getting introduced every single day as well. So I think it's just kind of trying to keep up to date with everything new that's coming. Like, for example, TikTok is really big at the moment. So then everyone's trying to jump onto TikTok and just trying to be absolutely everywhere, as well as you might be trying to still keep on practicing 3 hours a day for an orchestra job. And you might go, oh, well, I also need to be earning money. So I'm going to teach on the side, or I'm going to like work a part-time job. It's just a lot, and just kind of trying to figure out exactly what area you want to stick with. Because something that I really struggle with is I want to do absolutely everything, and then I get overwhelmed, rather than just sticking to my one thing. Because there's so many like different ways to show yourself as a musician at the moment, like getting gigs. Like for me, I'm like, okay, I could be doing woodwind doubling in musical theatre, or I could be an orchestral clarinetist, or I could do chamber music, or I could be a soloist, or I could just do Instagram or YouTube or TikTok or run a business. Like there's just so many options, and just trying to stick with one, but also stay educated in all the different platforms at the moment as well.
So we have a question from Facebook. It's amazing the influence of El Sistema in the States. Speaking of social change, music teaching and learning are going through a real metamorphosis right now as millennials join orchestras, create their own groups, creative projects, and enter into professorships, and Generation Z goes into college. Do you think there is an opportunity for change in these structures that seem to be stuck in the past to some extent?
Can you repeat the last part of that? Do you think that, I think you cut out a little bit on my end.
Okay, do you think there is an opportunity for change in these structures that seem to be stuck in the past for the most part, or to some extent?
I think there has to be. I mean, if the structure is still set in old ways, I mean, it has to change. I think from the pressure of just society, one, um, and and I hate to say this, but like cancel culture, like if you aren't changing, if you are not bringing new ideas and diversity and perspectives into whatever organization, community, or whatever you have, like you aren't gonna survive. And I mean that's bold. I mean I'm really passionate about this subject, but if there is, you have to make the change. If there has to, it's going to be hard, but you have to, you I don't know how to put it into words. I'm like getting a little heated about it. You just have to, you have to make sure that you aren't stuck in these old ways because they aren't successful, and the pandemic has put a highlight on things that aren't going well, that you can't go back to the way things were. um Okay, I'm gonna stop there and get other perspectives on that.
I think it'll change. I hope it'll change. I'm sure it'll change with time, but I think the big question is how, and how long will it take? I think there's a lot of us out there, uh, millennials, young people who are qualified to work and do good things, but maybe don't have a foot in the door, or we're trying to break through those glass ceilings, or just trying to get an opportunity to just show that we can do it. And we have great ideas and a lot to offer. And unfortunately, we're also in a pandemic, and the job market doesn't have enough to go around much of the time. So it's just tough, you know. I think the changes will be slow, but I think there's a lot of us out there who want to do good and are ready to make an impact where we can.
I also think the change has to come from how we teach too. Um, I mean, the change that we want may not happen like in our lifetime. Maybe, hopefully, I hope it does. Believe me, I really do. But going back to what you talked about in imposter syndrome, I was gonna say this. A lot of students that I have that are people of color, I sort of have to anticipate or really watch out with some of their imposter syndromes, in the sense that in media or resources that I am giving to them, I have to make sure that there are people in color people of color doing the thing that I'm encouraging them to do outside of myself. And even from the sense of race, a lot of my students in the Elsa Stemma program, we have to reassure them that like this classical music streamline is for them and they can have access to it. And regardless if it doesn't look like that now, it will because they are doing it. And hopefully they go further into it. And then maybe when they're our age, this issue of diversity and representation and the color of the stage will not be as much of an issue as it is now. But I think it'll be more fruitful when they're adults.
Yeah. We have to keep the younger generations inspired so they can someday take over what we're doing.
Yes.
You know, no one can be forgotten, especially underserved communities of color.
Let's see. I'm trying to see if there's any other questions. Maybe before we could wrap up, we can all share any projects that we're working on. I know maybe things are a little bit different than projects we would normally be working on without the pandemic, but anything that you want to share that you are currently working on, you have plans to work on?
Mm,
Maybe that's a weird question given, the current state of the world. I just, if anyone has anything they want to share.
I'm getting ready to launch a online course for personal branding and marketing on Thinkific. Been working on this for a few months now, so hoping to get that out in maybe the next couple weeks. But it's basically going to give me giving you all my answers and secrets and just tips on things I wish I had known 7 years ago when I exited my master's degree. So I hope that's helpful for anyone who's interested. And if you're following me on social media, I'll be posting about it soon. But that's kind of my big theme right now. It's been on the back burner for a little while, so I'm trying to get it, moving out to everyone.
I am gonna be there for that one.
So we'll be charging for it, but it's definitely going to be worth it. I'm trying to include a lot of information and resources and content that will help anybody, no matter whether they're a musician or just another kind of professional. It's really geared for anyone who's interested. So excited to get that out.
My virtual concert band is going to be launching a new project on Wednesday. So later today, I'm going to be announcing what piece we're going to be performing. And then on Wednesday, musicians literally at any age from anywhere in the world can come and join, come play the piece with us. You just record it on your phone. You just literally just need some headphones to have the click track in. And we do a live workshop with the composer, who is a very famous American composer for this current piece. And I'm doing a new piece every single month for anyone that wants to check it out and get involved.
Super exciting.
I wouldn't say I have a current project that it will happen anytime soon. With this new job position and something that I've been meaning to do for a very long time since I got the position of program director. But we'll see how it works. I have a little bit more accessibility now that I'm at the university, but I was planning this early summer to do a recital of music from all people of color. Now that I have access to a recital hall and a pianist, but we'll see. The hardest part about that is picking the music. Is just finding music. That's the trickiest part about that for me. But it's a slow burn. Hopefully it'll get more solidified by the end of next month. But yeah.
maybe that's a good time. Actually, I'll see if Jessica maybe could find it. We had an article recently on the TCO works by people of color, and we're working on a database of music like that. So we have committees for that. We are definitely very passionate about this, and it's an important conversation to have. So hopefully that helps. Maybe it gives you some repertoire ideas for your concert.
Yeah.
That would be wonderful. Well, do any of you have any final words that you would like to say? Any advice, just anything before we wrap up and move on to a video premiere starting at 6 Eastern time?
Just be kind. Just be kind to your peers and colleagues. Have empathy. That's my biggest advice. Regardless of what you're doing, if someone's doing something that you want to do, but you're not there yet, just be kind.
Yeah, be kind. Be kind to yourself. You know, this is a hard time for everybody. We're all going through it, except for Laura. You know, you know what I mean. But yeah, don't lose sight of the possibility ahead. I always tell my students to create for the back row. You know, just like playing for the back row. You know, let your creativity keep you inspired for tomorrow. And I think that's about it for me. It's definitely a unique time to be a musician, and I think we're all learning a lot from each other. And I hope that we can continue to take these things into the classroom once we're all together again, so, and the concert hall, wherever else we are.
I think definitely staying kind to yourself. And if you're currently in one of the countries that's not in Australia, that's in a lockdown, get rid of that expectation that you have to be productive during this time, and instead just really look after yourself, and instead use that time to figure out what you really enjoy doing, rather than saying you always have to be productive and starting all of these new projects, because it's such a difficult time. So just really look after yourself, and again, figure out what your definition of success is and what you really want to do, rather than what everyone else around you is telling you to do.
Wonderful advice. I'm feeling so inspired. It's so good to see all of you and to just feel motivated, like after all of this discussion. Thank you all for sharing your story, your journeys, your advice, your perspectives. Thank you again so much for being here. I really enjoyed this, and I hope everyone watching did as well. In about 8 minutes, we have a video premiere on our YouTube channel, and the final event of ICA Plays On for January 2021 starts at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. It's Gregory Ajid who's going to be talking about getting into jazz. So if anyone is interested, feel free to tune in to one or both, and be on the lookout on our YouTube channel where all of these are going to be uploaded. And we'll see you soon at the next events. Thanks again to the wonderful panelists.
Thank you for
Thank
having me.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.